Regression analysis. Oh boy. Something that messes with people's heads, and I don't blame you. It's something you probably saw in a statistics class back in college. These words, they always give me a fun time. So what is regression analysis? All it is, it's just, right, you remember it's the X and Y on the graph comparing dependent and independent variables. Now, let's talk about dependent and independent variables. I think, well, what the heck, Nick? Why are we covering this? My first answer is, well, it's on the test. The CPA wants you to know it. But really, what is this? Well, you can use this for forecasting, projecting, understanding the relationship between two variables. And if you understand the relationship between two variables, then you can understand how future business could go. Independent variables, this is the cause of the relationship. It's not affected by something. So hours of sleep you get each night, well, okay, hours of sleep you get each night affects something else, affects your mood and health. The amount of sales calls you make affects the amount of sales made or dollars earned. If you make one sales call versus 100 sales call, that's probably very much going to affect how much money you earn the next week or next month. If you get 2 hours of sleep tonight versus 8 hours of sleep, that's for sure going to affect your mood and your health. Dependent variables depend on the independent variables. And boy, do I feel like I'm going back to college or even high school with this stuff. It's a great time. Just like with all the algebra on this exam, it's really funny. It's quite comical, but no worries. You're going to do just great. Keep those spirits up. You're going to do wonderful. Simple regression. This term, you might see a definitional question or just a little bit. We'll keep going on about it, but a simple regression explains the relationship between a dependent variable and one independent variable. That is just going to be, right, the cause and effect, hours of sleep versus mood and health. The multiple regression explains the relationship between dependent variable and more than one independent variables. So that's going to be hours of sleep you get each night, comparing to your mood and health, also what you eat each day. So we've got one dependent variable, right? We've got your mood and health, and we could have many independent variables. We could have hours of sleep, right? What you eat, how much stress you have the next day or the previous day. You could also have other variables such as amount of sales calls made and what's its effect on your mood and health. Maybe it's none, and that's what we'll see. We'll see that there are relationships where there's no correlation. However, maybe it does have an effect because you get that good old serotonin boost, right? Because you are doing well, you're making a bunch of sales calls, making a bunch of money, and that could have a positive correlation on your mood and health. Now, take it from me. Base your mood and your health on your personal happiness and family. Don't base it on work. Just enjoy. Take a step back. If you want to do it right now, stretch. Just be grateful and enjoy life. It's not all about the business and accounting. This will be here always. Okay. Well, awesome. Take it all in. A little bit of regression. Again, why is this important? Well, because we are trying to forecast different relationships between items, between costs, between activities in business, right? And just to cover this all, we've got linear regression. That's method of studying the relationship between two or more variables. That's what this is, linear regression. And linear, why is that? Well, there's lines on a graph, which we will see in a second. And this is predicting costs, predicting how much something is going to increase based on something else. The coefficient of correlation, statistical measures, oh boy, oh boy. Now, first off, I am going to just look at these. The strongest, if a question asks, what's the strongest? So the relationship between what I eat and how much sleep I get has a correlation of +1, +1. That's the strongest it could be. But if it has a inverse correlation of -1, that's also the strongest it could be, right? Don't get tricked. This is the weakest a correlation can be. Now, what does this mean? This means they go up together. So if this is amount of hours of sleep and this is my mood, right? Doesn't matter right now, but they both go up together. So with the more sleep I get, the more, I guess, happiness points. The more happiness points I get, and they both go up together. Now here, it might be Let's say the amount of the amount of times I brush my teeth and the amount of cavities I get. So the amount of time I brush my teeth goes up while the amount of cavities I get goes down. So it's an inverse correlation, but it's a correlation of 1, even though it's -1, meaning that it's the strongest. So if something has a 0.01, right, or a 0.5 or something below, that's a weaker correlation. They're still correlated, but they're weaker. So right here, so no correlation. I mean, this would be the weather in Bogota and what I had for lunch today. All you conspiracy theorists out there, maybe you are trying to find the relation between what the weather in Colombia is versus my lunch, but I'll assure you there is no correlation. It is 0, it's completely unrelated. And examples here also, right? Amount of cars purchased and gallons of gasoline used. The more cars are purchased, the more gasoline is going to be used. Maybe electric cars will play a role in that and cut that down. But anyway, we're not getting into that now. Amount of free time and grades in school. So the less free time you have, I guess in theory, the higher your grades will be because you're studying more. That would be an example here. Now, are those exactly correlated? It depends on the person, I guess. Maybe someone has less free time because they play more video games and that's not going towards studying, but you get what I am saying there. Just to go back up here, since I completely ignored it, right? The coefficient of correlation is the variable r. Just memorize that. Know what r is. We'll see what r squared is. If you're thinking, hey, Nick, where is r squared? Well, we will get to that. Quantifies the strength of a linear relationship. As I mentioned before, the linear relationship is just the relationship between these two variables. Between the independent and dependent variable, this is r. So if we have an r variable of 0.5, they're correlated, but not as correlated as a -1 or a 1 if you have an r of 0.00001. I mean, technically, yes, they're a little correlated, but very weakly. And yeah, this is a good little introduction, right? Just you could see multiple choice questions just based giving you an r variable and having you explain is it a strong relationship, inverse relationship, or it could just be something leading into a definitional based question. I've seen a few different ways this is presented. Nothing too crazy though. Just make sure you're understanding this, and if you're not, just go back and rewatch. No worries. Not everyone gets everything on all 4 exams the first time. It is totally a-okay. All right. Regression analysis, coefficient of determination. As I alluded to, we have another variable. This one is r squared. Get ready for the sequel. You thought r was great. Well, r2 is going to be even better. And then just wait, r2d2 will come next. So the coefficient of determination. This is a measurement used to explain how much variability of one factor can be caused by its relationship to another factor. Now you'll see here, it's known as the goodness of fit. Sounds a little interesting, right? Is it correct grammar? The goodness of fit. This is just a textbook. I actually remember this back from college. So memorize coefficient of determination equals r squared, which equals goodness of fit. It's just all the same thing there. So memorize that. Just some definitional based questions. This is the proportion of the total variation in the dependent variable explained by the independent variable. This one is actually only between 0 and 1. There's no negatives here. So the higher the r squared, the greater the proportion of the total variation in y that is explained by the variation in x. The higher the r squared, the better the fit of the regression line. This is just how well does it tell the story? How good does this fit into our regression analysis? Memorize a few key points about this. Nothing too crazy, but we can use both r and r squared to understand the relationship between two factors. Whether, like I said, that is what I eat and my mood, or whether that's, let's think about business, right? The color paint you use and the amount of heat in your factory. I mean, if you paint your factory black absorbs heat more, whereas blue or white or something does not absorb heat. just a factor like that you can use to analyze everything, right? Maybe your trucks, you have trucks and you plaster some advertisements on those trucks. Well, you can see the correlation between trucks that have advertisements on them in certain states and increases in sales in certain states. All many different relationships that you may see, and yeah, just benefit business wise because that's what you are. You are an intelligent business individual, and I hope you take all of what you're seeing here, and you succeed. Let's take an example and look through the coefficient of determination. I'm not leaving here until you understand it all. Arctic Company is reviewing its financial information for the past 7 years. Based on prior data, Arctic calculates that fixed and variable costs for the next year will be $30,000 of fixed and $12 per unit, respectively. Hey, just a quick note here. If any of you are not familiar with what respectively means, everyone's coming from different situations, right? So, respectively means, well, fixed is mentioned first, variable is mentioned second. So, this is first, this is second. So, we see fixed is 30 and variable is 12. Now, this might be a little more obvious because per unit is obviously variable and fixed is just a dollar amount, but maybe it said the cost for something is 30 and the cost for something else was 12,000, right? Respectively is a great way to, in a sentence, clearly state what belongs to each item. Just a note there in case you were not aware. If you were, good, awesome. Okay, additionally, Arctic Company calculates its correlation coefficient between the independent variables as 0.8. So we already know the correlation coefficient. We know that R is 0.8. Let's move along here. Well, the R squared for the regression equation, y, now you might remember the y equals mx plus b formula from whatever class it may have been you took, statistics or calculus or any of that. I'm not getting into that because I don't want to, and good for us, it's not on the exam. So y is total cost equals 30,000 plus 12x. Well, you see, this makes sense, right? What's the total cost of your operations? Well, total costs equal fixed plus variable. And then variable, obviously, vary on Rx, which is the volume, how many units you're making, $12 per unit. Now, with x being volume, it's equal to 0.68. In R squared of 0.68 means that 68% of the change in total cost during a period can be attributed to changes in volume. Perfect there. Now this 0.68, this 68%, this will be given to you. This is just understanding it, right? You're not calculating this. You're just understanding that 68% of the change in total cost can be attributed to changes in volume. That's how good this equation fits, right? How good we understand what is going on. Hey there! Are you ready to not only pass your CPA exams, but truly understand and enjoy the material while studying? I know it seems impossible, right? Especially to enjoy the material? We'll do it together. Tap into the power of CPA.examprep.ai, where we've got personalized quizzes, multiple choice questions, memorization guides, flashcards, simulations, all tailored to your learning. Our adaptive study planning puts you on the fastest path to success and lifts you back up if you fall behind. Avoid wasting your precious time and money attempting an exam with a low chance of passing, because who wants that? We want to get you through this process as quick as possible. Our exam readiness prediction lets you walk in with confidence, knowing that you're prepared for success on exam day. Thankfully, there's no payment method needed to get started, so why don't you come join us? Visit cpa.examprep.ai and let's achieve your exam success together.